Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving under the hood to look at the incredible, non-stop balancing act that's happening inside every modern car. It's this hidden world of engineering trade-offs that makes our smooth, safe rides even possible. You know, to really get how far we've come, let's start with a little story. Back in 1895, a guy named Evelyn Henry Ellis became the UK's very first automotive lawbreaker. And you know what he did? He drove his car at a blistering 10 miles per hour. The legal limit at the time? Just 4 miles per hour. And you had to have someone walking in front of the car waving a red flag. Can you even imagine? Those early cars were just loud, crude, and honestly barely controllable.
So the big question is, how on earth did we get from that loud, law-breaking machine, to the incredibly smooth and safe cars we all drive today? Well, the answer is this whole series of brilliant solutions to some seriously tricky engineering problems. It all starts with the heart of the car and its biggest dilemma.
Okay, let's start with the engine. Now, at its most basic, an internal combustion engine is really just a series of tiny, controlled explosions that push pistons up and down. That's what gives you power. But managing those explosions creates this fundamental dilemma, a constant trade-off between power and purity. So the very first balancing act for engineers is the air-to-fuel ratio. You can run the engine rich, which means more fuel, and that gives you maximum power when you put your foot down to accelerate. Or you can run it lean with less fuel, which gives you much better gas mileage. Seems like an easy choice, right? Power when you need it, efficiency when you don't. Well, it's not quite that simple. Yeah, here's the catch. If you run the engine too rich, you get all this unburned fuel and poisonous carbon monoxide coming out the tailpipe. But if you run it too lean, the extreme heat inside the engine creates these really nasty nitrogen oxides, which are a huge ingredient in smog. So it really feels like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Either way, you lose. So what was the solution? Well, it's an absolutely amazing piece of chemistry and engineering, the three-way catalytic converter. This little device sits in your exhaust system, and it uses precious metals like platinum and rhodium to trigger chemical reactions that literally transform those three big pollutants, the hydrocarbons, the carbon monoxide, and the nitrogen oxides, into harmless stuff like carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and just water vapor. Pretty incredible. But, and there's always a but, this chemical miracle has its own problem. It's incredibly fussy. It only works its magic on all three pollutants inside an extremely narrow window. To get rid of everything, the engine needs this perfect air-to-fuel ratio, about 14.7 parts air to 1 part fuel. It's called the stoichiometric point. If you stray even a tiny bit from that perfect mix, the converter's effectiveness just plummets. So your car's computer uses sensors to constantly monitor the exhaust, micromanaging the engine to keep it right in that super clean, super narrow sweet spot. But, making clean power is only half the battle. You also have to use that power efficiently, and that brings us to the gearbox. Just think about a cyclist. They have a certain pedaling speed, a cadence, where they feel most powerful and efficient. Well, an engine is exactly the same. It has this optimal operating zone, its own sweet spot, where it makes the power you need while sipping the least amount of fuel. The real challenge is keeping the engine in that sweet spot, no matter how fast or slow you're actually driving. And that is the job of the gearbox. By changing gear ratios, it basically uncouples the engine's speed from the wheel's speed. So low gears let the engine rev up high to give you a powerful start from a stoplight. Then the high gears let the engine slow way down to this quiet, fuel-sipping hum when you're just cruising on the highway. It's this constant dance to keep the engine right in its happy place. All right, so we figured out how to make clean, efficient power. But what good is all that power if you can't control it and stay safe? Now we get into the physics of control, and believe me, it has a whole new set of balancing acts. First up, the suspension. Of course, you want a soft, cushy ride that just soaks up all the bumps and potholes, right? But for safe handling, especially when you're taking a corner or you have to swerve suddenly, you need a firm suspension that keeps those tires glued to the road. So suspension engineers are in this constant battle, balancing these competing demands for pure comfort
and sharp control.
The ultimate control system in any car, though, it's got to be the brakes. And their job is just mind-boggling. They have to convert the car's massive energy of motion into pure heat. And how much heat are we talking about? Well, to stop a high-performance car from 80 miles per hour, its brakes have to dissipate 194 kilowatts of power. To put that in perspective, that's enough raw energy to power dozens of homes. It's just immense. But here's the thing. Stopping isn't just about brute force. In an emergency, your first instinct is probably to slam on the brakes as hard as you can. But that can lock the wheels, sending you into a skid. And a skidding tire has almost no grip for turning. It can't be steered. At that moment, you're not driving anymore. You're just a passenger along for the ride.
This is where the anti-lock braking system, you know it as ABS, becomes the hero of the story. There are speed sensors on each wheel that tell a computer the exact moment a wheel is about to lock up. The computer then instantly pulses the brake pressure on that wheel, releasing and reapplying it up to 15 times a second. It's like the world's fastest tap dancer on your brake pedal, keeping the wheel right on the edge of locking, which gives you the shortest possible stop while, and this is the crucial part, letting you steer to safety.
So, all of this, it brings us to the final piece of this incredibly intricate puzzle. Who manages all these delicate balancing acts all at the same time in perfect harmony? Well, it's the conductor. A modern car is really just a network of powerful computers and sensors. These digital conductors are constantly watching thousands of data points, making tiny adjustments in real time to every single system we've talked about, the air-fuel ratio, the transmission shifting, the brakes. They are the invisible brain that makes this entire symphony work. And this really gets to the heart of it all. A modern car isn't just a collection of parts bolted together. No way. It's a single, deeply integrated system. The people designing the engine have to be thinking about the transmission. The engineers working on the brakes have to collaborate with the suspension team. Every single piece has to work in perfect concert with everything else. And this incredible story of balancing acts, it just keeps evolving. As we're now moving into this new era of hybrid and fully electric cars, the problems change. But that fundamental need for balance is still there. Now, engineers are wrestling with brand new dilemmas. How do you balance heavy battery weight against driving range? Or charging speed against the long-term life of the battery? Or even the feel of regenerative braking versus what we're used to? The car's great balancing act is far from over. It's just getting started on a new chapter.